There hasn't been anything yet on TV. It is to get the maximum political impact possible. The full source material is what helps keep journalism honest. We want to show people. We wanted to present something else.
When a man speaks the truth, who do these people protect? Are they policemen or women, or are they police officers? Officers of the law, there to enforce the law, there to protect the public from this man's supporters. Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, and a man surrounded, I suppose, by mystery for many years, because nobody had ever heard of him, and certainly not me. He has been tagged for over 500 days and under house arrest for the same 500 days. Accused of treason by the United States of America, and it was Bradley Manning who supplied the information to WikiLeaks, exposing the truth of all of the horrors, many of the horrors of the war, Bush's and Blair's illegal wars. Julian Assange awaits extradition to Sweden on charges of rape. Well, not even charges actually, because there are no charges against him as yet. But he's still awaiting extradition and seems to be about to be extradited to Sweden. Now, Sweden is very, very pally with the United States of America, where Bradley Manning is facing charges of treason for giving the information to Julian about all of the horrors that were perpetrated during the war. Human rights, horror violations. Human rights violations kept quiet and put into secret documents that nobody would find for decades, if ever at all. But Julian Assange and Bradley Manning are, according to the United States of America and their government, traitors. Traitors for telling the truth. It was Winston Churchill who said,
the truth must be protected behind a bodyguard of liars.
I sometimes wonder what truth Winston Churchill had to protect behind a bodyguard of lies. There have been many truths exposed in WikiLeaks. That Bradley Manning, a soldier who has sworn an oath to protect his nation against enemies, both foreign and national, is now charged with treason by his nation for revealing truths that his nation wants to keep secret. Smacks of his nation being more of a tyranny than a democracy. And of course, the United Kingdom has this special relationship with the United States of America. But the UK has to go through the procedure of the law. And it seems those who speak the truth are punished by the law. The law that seems to protect just those who seem to be controlling everything. And this man and Bradley Manning, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, are up against forces that are not for the people of this planet, but are for themselves and those people that are fighting, that are condemning Julian Assange and Bradley Manning, are the perpetrators of more crimes than Bradley Manning and Julian Assange have ever committed. But when business and the banking system works with governments...
Before we go into the details, I just want to mention that this is the subject matter of this meeting. You're all aware of the case that was in the court next door yesterday and the day before, the Royal Court of Justice. I will ask you to refrain from questions with regard to that matter, but I think it's the strongest financial institutions in the world, which in my belief are unprecedented and almost reminds you of...
Pressure also seems to have been applied, not in any legal manner, but through connections in Washington to the major financial institutions. And in December last year, we saw an economic blockade established against WikiLeaks by Visa, MasterCard, the Bank of America, Western Union, and PayPal. Now you might think that such a blockade would need to exist some kind of official process, some kind of investigation by the authorities in the United States, and adding us to a list of organisations that must be blockaded economically. And yet here we are in July with an active economic embargo still occurring against this organisation by US financial companies and their licensees without any reasonable explanation. When Visa and MasterCard together control 96% of card processing in Europe, they must act in a fair and rational manner. It is not a matter for these companies operating in Europe, operating in Australia, operating in Iceland, to enforce unwritten rules of US foreign policy. How can it be right for someone in England who is a supporter of WikiLeaks, who wishes to provide us with the support that we need to expose the truth, to be prevented from doing so by Visa Europe as a result of the licensing conditions that Visa Europe is forced to maintain from Visa in the United States? Well, it's not right, and that is why we are engaging in a legal attack on Visa and MasterCard in every jurisdiction where they operate and in every place where people who have Visa and MasterCards want to exercise their free choice. It is not just WikiLeaks who is at threat. All activist organisations are at threat.
And what I've seen so far on the net is pretty consistent with what we have seen all along in the past 18 months or so, and that is a mainly hostile and negative attitude towards Julian Assange and his attempt to avoid extradition to Sweden. The Swedish prosecutors have invested so much prestige in this case that they're under a lot of pressure to get him convicted of something. So everything that I've seen thus far indicates to me, however, that the prosecutor in charge is rather seriously determined to convict him of something.
I think the Crown Prosecution Service in Britain has wasted taxpayers' money. I don't think this ought to have been brought, this case ought to have been brought at all. Julian Assange offered to meet the Swedish prosecutor here. He offered to meet the Swedish prosecutor over there. He left with the permission of the Swedish prosecutor. There's been no suggestion that he didn't want to cooperate. So why are we going through all this? Why did Julian Assange end up in the punishment block at Wandsworth Prison? The Swedish legal systems, it seems to be chaotic. How can they keep changing the goalposts all the time and then not supply documents to the court?
Julian did not turn up in court today. But these people, these human beings, these people that care about the truth, they stood outside the court because they believe, in fact they know, that the system that they're living in has got something really drastically wrong with it. And if the system has something really drastically wrong with it, what do? Do you sit on the fence and take no notice and hope that the horrors of the tyranny that's rising within Western nations, this secret dictatorship of parties and industrial complexes and bankers that seem to be defrauding everybody out of everything, one wonders whether we should all stand up and say, enough is enough. Julian Assange and Bradley Manning are guilty of one thing and one thing alone: informing the public of the world of things that should have been transparent in the first place.
WikiLeaks has managed to expose war criminals, corruption, humanitarian crimes, abuses of democracy, backroom dealings, and instead of those people being prosecuted for what are serious crimes against humanity, instead we're trying to persecute the person who's exposing these revelations, and I think that's a really sad indictment of the kind of society we live in. I think they're trying to shoot the messenger.
I'm receiving messages from inside the court where we understand that Assange's defence team is calling for 14 days to appeal this decision. Again, this is a case that we know has been going on the whole of this year and a good proportion of last year as well, and it doesn't seem that it's over yet. They are arguing for an appeal which is based on criminal principles, but the judge, according to people who are inside the court, doesn't seem to be very keen on granting that. He has already said that all 4 points of Assange's defence have been rejected by the court, dismissed, and they include an allegation that he wouldn't receive a fair trial in Sweden, and also that the Swedish prosecution who issued the European arrest warrant that Assange's extradition is being requested under, in fact, had no authority to do so. Those defence points have all been dismissed by the court. Now, what may happen now is that what will happen now is that Assange will ask for permission to appeal to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court here in the UK. Now, that permission will only be granted by the High Court and the Supreme Court itself if this case is deemed to be in the wider public interest, so to include points of law that would appeal not just to Assange himself but to other people as well. It's likely that the whole principles of this European arrest warrant would come under scrutiny if this case did go to the Supreme Court. Many people in the UK would welcome that because they say that this is a system that's unfair, that people can be extradited inside Europe without a lot of evidence having to be provided and really with very little charge at all. Now, Assange is very likely to try to do that, but it's not clear yet whether that permission will be granted. So this is a case which is very much continuing. Meanwhile, of course, Julian Assange's life's work is under threat. He has now said that WikiLeaks is critically short of funding and may even have to close in the new year. So it's not a good day for Julian Assange.
Well, you see, what they've actually said today, and so this was decided on a submission that was put by the lawyers, and I put an intervention in as well, was what is the meaning of a judicial authority. Now, we argued, and the lawyers argued, that a judicial authority meant a proper judge or a court of law, because it's a centuries-old principle of English law that you cannot be a judge in your own case, and the prosecutor in Sweden was going to try this case is therefore also the person requesting extradition, so it wasn't independent. The court actually came to an extraordinary judgment, in my view, which was that the original EU framework decision used the French word authorité judiciale, which had a wide variety of meanings, including a prosecutor. So although our own parliament and our own government minister believes a judicial authority means a proper court or a proper judge, that was overturned, and it was decided that the meaning of the word in French was actually what mattered, and therefore they threw out the submission. I think it's extraordinary. It means that now English law has been decided on the meaning of a French word.
Well, absolutely. There is this concern that, you know, the Swedish authority, indeed the US influence in this case, has sort of in a sense overridden the British justice system here.
Well, I have to tell you that the British justice system has been overridden by the EU now for some time. They're creating their own system of criminal law. The European arrest warrant is a key part of this. And in fact, the English and Scottish courts now have no power to protect people from extradition. They really have no power to prevent an extradition. Providing a piece of paper has been correctly filled out, name, address, the nature of the offence, they don't have to supply any evidence. And the court is not allowed to take into account the prima facie evidence or lack of it against the accused person. You know, as Mr. Assange has found out, this is not about the evidence against him, about whether it stacks up or not. It's about the meaning of a word in French.